In terms of some very substantive critique of Hillary Clinton, has nothing to do with her announcement. But this was the most interesting critique that I have heard. Like we said earlier, if you look back on policy differences between 2007 Barack Obama, 2008 Barack Obama, and 2007, 2008 Hillary Clinton, and talking about in the primaries, not a huge difference in policy. I think the biggest difference, at the very least, the most obvious biggest difference, because God help us if Hillary Clinton brings in Barack Obama's first set of policy economic advisors, which was the Clintonistas in the first place. But put that aside, the most obvious glaring difference that I think is really clear here has been captured by a former Republican and a former independent and now a Democrat. Former governor of Rhode Island, Lincoln Chafee. He's also a former senator. He was a Republican senator. Then became, I think, an independent governor. Here he was on CNN announcing that he was contemplating running against Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination. And his reason is, I think, one of the most substantive critiques that we can access right now about Hillary Clinton. Here's that audio.
And Governor, you said explicitly that you're considering challenging Hillary Clinton primarily because of her vote for the Iraq War. You famously were the only then Republican to vote against the Iraq War back in 2002. But do you really think there's still enough anger left? This was a long time ago to propel your candidacy based on that?
Pause it. Can I just stop and just bash Dana Bash here for a moment? Really? Really? I mean, you're talking about it's a long time ago. Let's put this into some type of context. If someone brings up Whitewater, I think it's perfectly legitimate for a newscaster to say, that's a long time ago. Because it's not only a long time ago, 30 years, whatever it was, 40 years. It's a long time ago for a relatively narrow, parochial, not too seismic of an event. Okay? But to say that the Iraq War was a long time ago, when half the country is, let me put it this way, when we are still actually running bombing sorties to try and stabilize things there, where we have taken out the vast amount of our troops only a year or two ago, a war that lasted longer than any other war that we had been involved in, where hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives, that I would imagine it's not so much of a bygone. Yeah, it was 8 years ago. My whole family got blown up. That to me is just the height of irresponsibility. I mean, the idea, it's one thing to make no sort of commentary on that, on the Iraq War. But to say, to diminish the relevance of that as a historical event by saying, it was a long time ago, seems incredibly irresponsible.
He also, before that interview, and as you'll see, not once did he ever make the argument, well, I'm angry and pissed at Hillary Clinton about that, so therefore you should punish her.
No.
He's saying this reveals a flaw.
Judgment. Right.
Well, I enjoyed working with Senator Clinton. We overlapped for 6 years, and we served on the Environment and Public Works Committee together, and we worked on some breast cancer issues. We worked on endangered species together. I enjoyed that. But that vote for the Iraq War, that was a moment in time, Dana, where the Vietnam era had ended, the Berlin Wall had come down. There was an age of lasting peace ahead of us if we made good decisions, particularly after September 11th, when people were angry and they were scared. And that was just a moment in time where the premise for going into Iraq was so false that there were weapons of mass destruction. She didn't do her homework. and we live with the ramifications today. And so you might say, oh, that's 12 years ago, but we live with it today. And it's a big motivator for why I'm running. If you show lack of judgment, lack of doing your homework then, what can we expect in the future?
You have called Hillary Clinton a Democratic Bush enabler, and you said that when you endorsed her opponent in 2008, Barack Obama. What about now? Do you think that her foreign policy chops are appropriate, or maybe her ideals and her goals are appropriate looking at the world now?
As I said, we're going to have a lot of areas of agreement domestically, but I have some big areas of disagreement internationally. Yes, I would say even her tenure as Secretary of State was kind of a muscular, top-down, unilateral, too close to the neocons, too Bush-light.
That's the critique. And that seems to me to be a pretty valid one. I mean, she has not been, I don't know if she's come out in terms of this Iran agreement one way or another.
She's been supportive of it.
But it's just fascinating to me that a lot of the logjam opens up after she's out. Now, that may just be because of she didn't want to go out on a limb, politically speaking, whereas Kerry seems to be perfectly willing to wrap up his career this way. But I think this is a valid critique of Hillary Clinton, and one which I think is going to have lasting legitimacy. I don't know who in the general election can make an argument, can make this argument against her, maybe short of Rand Paul, frankly. And Rand Paul, that would involve one of the most disingenuous and sincere arguments possible, because Rand Paul doesn't believe in anything. But be that as it may, he's well positioned to do it. I don't know that anybody believes in anything, but I increase my vote for time, for defense spending. I didn't change my position. We'll get to that in a minute. But just that's an interesting critique. And here's the thing about Lincoln Chafee, is that he could run on that. And here's the other thing about Lincoln Chafee. He doesn't give a crap if he doesn't have to go back into the Senate caucus and work with anybody. He doesn't have to, I think this is like, I'm going to wrap stuff up. So that could be interesting to see him run, at least on that front. Make candidate Hillary Clinton take positions on foreign policy questions, really crucial positions.